Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel and everything you wanted, didn't want to know about narcissism, and a heck of a lot more about how do you heal from these relationships. Today I'm going to be talking about a dynamic issue. It's a finer point, but I think it's worth knowing because some people who are healing from narcissistic relationships ask about this. What's the difference between seeking approval and seeking admiration? Before I get to that, and speaking of healing, again, go to that link in the video description. Just click on that if you're interested in starting a monthly healing program from narcissistic abuse. Please go ahead and click on that, get more information about it. Love to have you join us right from the very beginning and really get the maximum utility. So each day you really can push further on your healing process. And if you're new to this channel, please subscribe. And if you want notifications as a reminder of your little dose of anti-narcissism every day, just hit that notification bell and you'll get that information. So without further ado, though, let's talk about the difference between seeking approval and seeking admiration. So a lot of people have wondered about this one. And it was a great question when it came up. I'm like, oh, I should take this one on. Admiration and approval seeking are very different dynamics that can often get confused in the conversation about narcissism and narcissistic abuse, and can leave people who are survivors of narcissistic abuse sometimes wondering if they are the one that's the narcissist. Seeking admiration and validation is one of the core dynamics of narcissism, as you know, and honestly is observed in every narcissistic person out there. It's sort of a required ingredient. We have covered this so many times on this channel, but just as a reminder that validation and admiration seeking is a way for the narcissistic person to keep any threats to their fragile ego at bay. The more admiration they get, the more soothed that they are. So everything in their lives tilts towards them seeking out admiration. And if they don't get the admiration, they get really irritable and angry. Admiration is a tool of regulation for them. So a person who is clearly not narcissistic was asking me, and she was wondering, she said, am I the one who's narcissistic? Because I really do seek approval. And she said she was confused because the approval seeking has landed her in more than a few narcissistic relationships. And I thought, wow, I've heard this question before from so many survivors. This person was confused whether approval seeking and admiration seeking were the same thing, because then she got afraid, oh my gosh, what if I'm the narcissist? And this is a person who had narcissistic parents, who had to sort of really fend for themselves at a rather young age, and then actually went into a couple of marriages with malignant narcissists. She was never noticed for the things she did, never really got recognition, and certainly didn't get approval of any kind from her parents. And she found that she spent her adult life trying to seek out approval, not admiration. Admiration and approval are not the same thing. But once she said that, I thought, wow, it's a really interesting point. And I really could understand that confusion, something that's come up with survivors. Seeking approval is a different process than admiration. Seeking approval is the asking, am I okay? Am I enough? Please let me know if I'm doing okay. Many survivors of narcissistic abuse, especially childhood narcissistic abuse, find that seeking approval is a core dynamic for them throughout their lives. The narcissistic parent was too self-obsessed to notice their children for any extended period of time. And if they finally did, it would typically be to yell at them, criticize them, or because they were inconvenienced by their children. Every child wants their parent to notice them and value them. And when that doesn't happen, it can leave that child going into adulthood craving approval from their parent, from their partner, from their boss, from strangers. It's a lifetime grail quest of wanting and waiting to hear that you are enough. Oh boy, you sure did a good job. And sadly, for those who had narcissistic parents, even when that approval finally comes, it can often be met with self-doubt and fear that it will disappear if you make even one wrong move. Admiration, on the other hand, is praise, compliments, praise, likes, fawning, prizes, rewards. Approval is validation of being good, someone telling you that they're okay with you. It's not nearly as exciting as admiration, but more of a person saying that you did something or are something good. It's almost like, I don't know, this is cynical, but someone's sort of signing off on you when you get their approval. Where it gets tricky is that narcissistic folks not only seek admiration, they also do seek approval. Remember, many narcissistic folks did have narcissistic parents, so they didn't get noticed either. They too wanted to be seen and approved of and all the rest of it. So not only are the narcissistic folks roaming around looking for 24/7 admiration, the same time, they're also looking for approval. And that right there is where some of this confusion sets in. The people experiencing narcissistic abuse aren't looking for admiration, but they're looking for approval. So there's sort of the inflection point. And looking for approval, frankly, makes us vulnerable. It puts us in adult relationships where we are working through that early parental approval seeking stuff, wanting our parents to approve of us. It makes people particularly vulnerable to narcissistic people and their machinations. When you are waiting for approval, there's sort of a built-in devaluation. There is not that internal voice saying you did good, even if the world doesn't applaud, or that you know you made a real and strong effort. The approval that we all want is in your own self-validation of the effort that you put in or the quality of it. It's tasting the food you cook and saying, yeah, wow, that's really good. Or reading something that you wrote and saying, wow, that's actually solid. Or looking at something you built and saying, oh, that looks really good. But most people who have survived narcissistic abuse, especially in childhood, do not have that inner self-affirming voice. Instead, there is a voice that is invalidating and in desperate need for approval. So that voice and person go out there and hope to get it from the people in their lives rather than hearing it internally. Approval seeking can also be part of that fawn response we have talked about as part of the sympathetic nervous system response to narcissism and narcissists. We want the narcissist to approve of us, don't we? Often because they remind us of the narcissistic or invalidating parent. And we keep trying harder and harder to get their approval. When narcissistic folks seek out approval, they always tend to want to punch up. They seek out that approval from people that they think are valuable, powerful, rich, famous. Your approval, my approval, doesn't matter so much to them. But when they think someone can make something big happen for them, that is when the approval seeking for a narcissist really kicks in. For a non-narcissistic person, approval seeking characterizes all their relationships if they've gone through narcissistic abuse. Doesn't matter if the person we're seeking is more powerful than us, less powerful than us, it doesn't matter. So there's also another difference. Now, the catch-22 for survivors is wanting approval and simultaneously feeling not good enough. And that's the ringer. So as a quick summary, many people who have been narcissistically abused or are vulnerable to narcissistic people seek approval. Our chronic quest to please oftentimes unpleasable parents, but other unpleasable systems, but unpleasable parents, partners, or invalidators in our midst. Narcissists as well, they want approval, but they tend to seek approval from people they think are more powerful than them. Narcissists also seek admiration, which is praise and compliments and kudos and bravo and you're so great. There's a difference. Admiration seeking tends to be more grandiose. So for those of you out there that recognize that you often seek out approval, but while admiration feels good, it isn't that much of a driver for you, you're probably not narcissistic, but rather one of the many on the journey wanting to finally be seen and heard. The healing happens when you see yourself. And if other people approve too, well, that's just the gravy. And again, just to be clear, I'm not saying any of us are above admiration. Who doesn't like kind of having the pat on our back and saying, wow, that's great, or getting some kind of award or recognition? That's a human want, but it doesn't need to be a human need. Hope that makes that distinction clear. Thanks again. And as always, for the great questions that are also being sent in. Thanks. Bye.